You're going to see a big curveball from Darryl Kyle. It was voted by the National League hitters as the best curveball among starting pitchers in the National League. Denny Nagel probably going to rely more on that fastball that's been so successful for him here in the second half, especially upstairs where he gets a lot of fly ball outs.
Final game of the series before the Braves and Houston head for interleague play, which begins again for these two teams tomorrow. We'll be back with the starting lineups and all the action from Atlanta right after this.
Braves baseball on the Superstation is brought to you by Budweiser. Beechwood aged for a crisp, clean, classic taste. Budweiser, the king of beers. By the 62,000 professionals at Delta Airlines, who proudly put you on top of the world. And by Discover Card, proud partner of the Smithsonian's 150th anniversary.
Tim Bogart back with the ball club of bat eighth, and Darryl Kyle the pitcher. There's the Braves defensive alignment. Tony Graffinino still in there at second base. Michael Tucker gets a start in right field. Javi Lopez will do the catching, and on the mound for his 29th start of the year, Denny Nagel, 17-3. A 2.83 ERA. He has made a start against Houston this year. No record against them. 5 1/3 innings, 3 runs allowed. In lifetime, 2-4 against the Astros.
And here's Craig Biggio to lead things off here in the first inning, and he takes the first one up high, ball one. He's hitting .310, 19 homers, 74 RBIs, 32 stolen bases, 121 runs scored this year. Foul back, 1 ball, 1 strike. A major league player has not scored 150 runs in a year since 1949, when Ted Williams scored right at 150. Biggio's on a pace right now to score 149. So he's got a shot. He's got a shot at it. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Those are MVP numbers for his ball club.
He's also second in the league in hit by pitch. He's been nicked 23 times this year. 2-1 the count. Foul back, 2-2. He told you all about the records of Nagel and Kyle. The one thing they also have in common is they haven't pitched very well in their careers against these two teams. Nagel, as Joe told you, just 2-4 lifetime against Houston with an ERA over 5. Kyle against Atlanta lifetime 4-7.
And 0-1 this year.
2 balls, 2 strikes. It's a full count now, 3-2. Braves now 4 games up in their division after the Florida Marlins lost in extra innings to the Cubs today, 4-3. So both these teams in the exact same spot in their respective divisions. The Braves 4 up on Florida, Houston 4 up on Pittsburgh. Strike 3 called outside corner. Mark Hirschbeck rings up Craig Biggio. 1 gone.
Biggio took a walk down the first base line. Doesn't say anything to Hirschbeck on his way back, but a high fastball that was borderline on the corner. Biggio had fouled off a couple of pitches just like that earlier in the count.
1 gone. That'll bring up James Mouton, a last-minute insert into the Houston lineup. Chuck Carr was originally in there. He was scratched. He injured his shoulder in batting practice. Mouton just .226 for the year with 3 homers and 23 runs driven in. He takes a strike, 0-1. Derek Bell has been hitting in this number 2 spot for the last couple of weeks for the Astros, but they have left so many men on base the first 2 games of this series. It was just a matter of time. You sort of had a feeling before Larry Dierker moved him further down in the order. He was getting no production at all from the 4 spot on down. So Bell back in the cleanup role tonight behind Bagwell.
Something else to that too, Pete, the fact that they've gotten Bell going. They got him in that 2 spot. It changed his role a little bit. His swing has been better, so now they can take advantage of that good swing by putting him in a middle part of the lineup.
Good changeup, and it's 1-2 now on Mouton. Ten meetings between these two clubs so far this year, and every game has been decided by either 1 run or 2 runs. A little bit high, 2-2. That was a good pitch by Nagel. He was ahead in the count. He got a high strike call on Biggio for strike 3. Just kind of throwing one up there to see how far up the ladder he could go and get a call.
And that's been his bread and butter pitch in the second half.
Now the 2-2 on the way, and there's a fly ball straight away center. Lofton back about 5 steps to make the catch. 2 down. And now last night's Houston hero, Jeff Bagwell. He's 3 for 10 in the series, now hitting .285 in the year with 35 home runs and 110 RBIs. He's 3rd in the league in homers, 2nd in the league in RBIs. Rockies ahead of him in all those categories. Larry Walker 37 home runs, Vinny Castilla 36, Andres Galarraga 117 RBIs. And he takes a strike from Nagel. 0-1.
Did a pregame radio interview with Jeff Bagwell tonight and thoroughly enjoyed the visit. He's very humble, very professional.
1-1 the count.
I was asking him about making adjustments against Braves pitchers when you start a series against them. Does he take anything different to the plate with him for batting practice? And he said, I said, you know, because Tony Gwynn told us, you know, he's got to prepare a little differently for Braves pitchers. He knows he's going to be pitched away. He said, hey, it's not 390 feet to right center here for nothing.
Here's the 2-1 pitch on the way, and it's just outside. Fastball missing. 3-1.
Implying that that's all that the Braves do to him is pitch him away, hoping to take away some of his power.
2 men out, base is empty. Here's the 3-1 pitch on the way. Grounded down the third base line. It stays fair. Chipper Jones across to first, gets him. So Nagel a 1-2-3 top half of the first inning. Now Darryl Kyle goes to work on the Braves in the bottom of the first.
Kenny Lofton, Michael Tucker, Chipper Jones here in the first inning. Fred McGriff in the cleanup spot. Brian Klesko is still in left field, followed by Javi Lopez and Jeff Blauser, who bats 7th tonight. Tony Graffanino's had a good series, and then Denny Nagel. For the Astros, Mouton in center field instead of Chucky Carr. Tim Bogar is back with the ball club to play shortstop, and Ricky Gutierrez moves over to third base. Tony Eusebio gets a start behind the plate to give Brad Ausmus a night off. And here's Darryl Kyle, 28 years old, 6'5", 185 out of Garden Grove, California. A 30th round draft pick out of Chaffee Junior College in California. In his last 13 starts, those are Greg Maddux-like numbers.
And here's Kenny Lofton to start things, and he takes the first pitch up high, ball 1. Lofton 348 for the year with 5 homers. He's gone 3 for 11 in this series. He'll be followed by Michael Tucker and then Chipper Jones. There's a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike. Tony Eusebio serves the same role for Darryl Kyle that Eddie Perez does for Greg Maddux. He has caught all but 1 of his starts this year. Two and 1 the count now on Kenny Lofton. Up and in, ball 3.
He averages about 3 walks a ball game. Sometimes has a little trouble early in the ball game with his control until he settles down. A little trouble with the release point on his curveball, and if that's the case, you better get him early.
Now the 3-1 on the way, and he walked him. So Lofton aboard to start the bottom half of the first inning. That'll bring up Michael Tucker. Tucker getting his first start in the series. His only at bat came as a pinch hitter, and he walked, hitting .271, 11 home runs on the year.
Pete, there was a great stat in the notes of the Astros tonight about Darryl Kyle. He lost a game back on April 30th, last day of the first month of the season, at Montreal. Since then, against National League teams, he is 16-0 with a 1.97 ERA.
In the air to center field, left center. Mouton over for the catch. Lofton holding on at first, 1 down. And the batter will be Chipper Jones. Well, you've got a great race this year for the Cy Young in the National League. You've got these 2 pitchers going tonight. Both of them 17-3 on the year. Greg Maddux also 17-3 on the year with a .233 earned run average. Sean Estes of the Giants is 17-4 on the year. And add into that mix Pedro Martinez of Montreal. He's 15-6 with a league-leading .161 earned run average. So you've got 5 legitimate contenders for the Cy Young this year. Normally, when you have that many, a couple of them will pitch not quite so well for the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, and it'll get down to a 2 or 3 man race. But the way these guys are going this year, it looks like it might be all 5 of them right to the very end.
And it seems like in recent years, Pete, it's only been a couple of guys. For the most part, you knew it was going to be one of 2 guys.
And you know who else is going to get some votes? He won't get many first place votes, but Curt Schilling's going to get some votes for the season he's had. He's going to win the strikeout crown in the National League. But I can't recall a year when you've had so many pitchers at this stage of the season, just about a month to go, having the kind of years these guys are having. They're all on a potential 23, 24 win season. Into center field, base hit, Chipper Jones. Lofton stopping at second. Runners first and second now with 1 down. And the batter will be Fred McGriff.
Oh, that was a blue darter right back at Kyle. Chipper put a nice swing on that, a nice easy swing.
First and second, 1 away from McGriff, who's down to 263 now for the year with 17 homers. He's 0 for 11 in this series. He only has a .250 lifetime batting average against Kyle, but of his 12 hits, 5 have been homers. There's that breaking ball for a strike, and he's got a dandy. 0-1.
It's the kind of curveball that comes out of his hand so high that the hitter tends to give up on it, Pete. You think there's no way it's going to come down back to the strike zone, but it does.
The runners lead from first and second. Out of play. Nothing in 2 the count. Both teams leave right after the game tonight. The Braves head up to Boston. Well, they'll play the Red Sox over the weekend. Houston heads up to Chicago. They'll be playing the White Sox as a week of interleague play begins. Braves have 3 with Boston at Fenway, and then 3 back here in Atlanta with the Tigers.
We've been wrapped up, and rightfully so, in our own schedule with the Braves heading to Boston. That's going to be fun to go to Fenway Park. But some other good matchups this weekend. Baltimore goes to Florida. The Mariners go down to play the Dodgers in L.A. 2 division leaders there.
Just off the inside corner, 1-2 now, McGriff.
Baltimore has the best record in baseball, and Braves are certainly hoping they can continue their hot ways.
1 man out, Jones at first, Lofton second. And the 1-2. Grounded foul off to the right. Still a ball and 2 strikes. I think that Baltimore series starts Monday with Florida. Let me make sure.
Does it?
I think that the Marlins go to Toronto first. Yeah, they do.
Okay.
They'll be in Toronto, and then they go to Baltimore.
Okay.
They'll be in Baltimore when Detroit is here. One and 2 on McGriff. Too much time. McGriff steps out. He does that a lot.
Well, Kyle is a very deliberate worker too. He gets men on base, and he goes to a snail's pace. So this will be the routine tonight.
There go the runners. 1-2 pitch, swing and a miss, throw to third by Eusebio, gets Kenny Lofton, and Chipper Jones is stranded at first base on the strike him out, throw him out double play. No score as we head to the second.
Is authorized under broadcasting rights granted by the Atlanta National League Baseball Club and is intended solely for the entertainment of our audience. Any publication, rebroadcast, retransmission of the pictures or descriptions of this game without the express written consent of the Atlanta National League Baseball Club is prohibited.
Kenny Lofton caught stealing for the third out of the inning. Derek Bell leads off here in the top of the second, takes high and away, ball 1. Lofton's percentage getting very close to 500. He's now 21 out of 38 in base stealing this year.
And 1 for 5 against Houston.
Bell 276, 11 homers, 56 RBIs, a 9-game hitting streak. Grounds one to the left side, right at Chipper. On the way, and that's 4 straight retired now by Nagel. And the batter will be Luis Gonzalez. Gonzalez, who hits lefties pretty well, hitting .375 in his career against Nagel, 9 for 24 with a homer. He's a .265 hitter in the year, 2 out of 11 in this series. One out, base is empty, no score. We're in the top of the second. 0-1.
Good fastball again from Denny, who has gone undefeated here at Turner Field this year. 8-0. Of course, he pitched the first game here, and pretty consistent there too. 3 or less earned runs in 24 starts.
1 ball, 1 strike. That's about as far back as you can get in that batter's box. Breaking ball is popped foul, back out of play, 1-2.
And Louis is one of those guys that starts with an open stance and then closes that shoulder up as he makes his stride into the plate. Kind of invites you to pitch him away, but he's got good plate coverage and likes to go the other way. And as a result, Klesko has him played near the line, especially with a lefty out there.
Now the 1-2 from Nagel. Upstairs, 2-2. Just missed. Full count now, 3-2. Ricky Gutierrez waiting on deck.
Pretty good patience by Gonzalez. That was a good changeup.
Off the screen, still a full count. Astros now 8 games over 500. They're a game under on the road. Larry Dierker in his first year as manager. A move that a lot of folks in baseball kind of questioned when it happened, but it's worked out very well for the Astros. There was never any doubt in Drayton McLean's mind when he named Larry Dierker manager that he would work out.
I heard Skip tell Bobby Cox the other night, though, when he was doing his pregame radio show with Bobby, that not to worry. He wasn't looking to try to move down into the dugout. Bobby sensed a little relief from that comment.
First base runner of the night for Houston. Gonzalez draws a 1-out walk. And that'll bring up Ricky Gutierrez.
Do you think Skip would make a good manager?
I don't know if he'd be patient enough.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he'd have that type of patience or not either.
Runner at first, 1 man out. Ricky Gutierrez hitting .266, couple of home runs and 22 RBIs.
I know what he'd say to Darryl Kyle if he had to go talk to him after batters kept stepping out.
0-1 the count on Gutierrez. Gutierrez 2 out of 10 in the series. Back at third base tonight. Tim Bogar had been away for a couple of days attending a funeral in Chicago, but he's back tonight at short, and Gutierrez moves back over to third. Changeup missing outside. 1 ball, 1 strike.
I know one thing for certain. If Skip were the manager, there would be no meetings.
No. 1-1 the count. At the knees, 1-2. the ground to third again. Chipper Jones goes to second. One there. Graffinino on to first. Not in time. Not really a double play ball hit down the line and not all that sharply, so they get the one out.
Good turn by Graffinino to make it close, though, and he got a good feed from Chipper. Tony is the type of second baseman it's hard to knock off his feet. He's so strong, very solid legs, that he doesn't have to worry about dancing too much out of the way of any of the guys sliding into him.
Now Tony Eusebio hitting .248 for the year, but don't tell that to Denny Nagel. Eusebio is 6 for 10 lifetime, hitting .600 against Nagel. Nothing and 1 the count. Eusebio is going to have knee surgery when the season's over. Japanese, nothing and 2 the count.
Tony's batting stance is not one you would really like for young kids to copy, but he doesn't worry too much about pulling the ball. Kind of wraps the bat, points it back at the pitcher a little bit, but he likes to inside out the ball to right center.
Now the 0-2 on the way, and it's down and away. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Runner at first, 2 outs. Were scoreless in the top half of inning 2. Oh boy, that almost got Denny Nagel. Base hit for Eusebio. Continues his mastery of Nagel, or almost took Nagel right out to center field with that line drive.
I actually think that one went between his glove and his body when he was trying to catch the ball. Let's watch and see here from center field.
Yeah, it did. Wow.
Whoa.
So the first base hit of the night for Houston. Runners now at first and second for Tim Bogar. .247 on the year with 4 homers. But since he's been inserted into the starting lineup, doing pretty well. He's hit .333 his last 78 at bats. Down in the count 0-1.
Part of that was when he got started and got hot playing against his old team, the Mets. He had a terrific series in New York.
Unlike Atlanta, who does not see Florida anymore this year, the Houston Astros do have some games left with the Pirates. In fact, they have 5 left for them, including the last 3 of the year. So that race could go right down to the wire if Pittsburgh can stay close.
Where are those 3 games?
The 3 at the end of the year are in Houston. They've got a couple of games in Pittsburgh, September 17th and 18th. Two and 1 the count now, and Bogar.
Talking to Jeff Bagwell before the ball game about the standings, I said, I know you guys didn't expect to see Pittsburgh in your rearview mirror right now, but what's happened to St. Louis? Are you surprised to see them that far back? And he said, I am, because they're too talented a ball club, but I don't think that they've got a chance to get back in it now. 10 back.
Yeah, and they've never made that little run that you kept waiting for them to make. Once the Cardinals fell about 8 games out, he said, yeah, but they're going to have that run where they're going to get right back in it, and they haven't done it. They're 12 games under 500.
I think they've done the right thing with Brian Jordan, too, to shut him down and get his back fixed.
Straight away center, Lofton in his tracks. 4 out number 3. Nothing doing for the Astros. They strand a couple of runners. They've left 30 men on base so far this series. Still no score. Not been here, but Larry Dierker, the Astros manager, came out at the end of the top half of the inning and was complaining about it being a little too mucky in the batter's box area.
And Ed Mangan and his crew responding by putting some diamond drying agent on the batter's box. But Dierker was saying to home plate umpire Mark Hirschbeck that his players had been complaining, and apparently Craig Biggio did some complaining after last night's game.
So as we go to the bottom half of the second, that's been taken care of, and it'll be Ryan Klesko, Javi Lopez, and Jeff Blauser due up against Darryl Kyle. No score.
The only thing I can think of in terms of what Larry Durker is complaining about is maybe an unfair advantage for Braves pitchers, in that if you've got a wet area around home plate, it's going to slow any ground balls up that are hit out in front of home plate. And I think that would be the case with most any other Braves pitcher. Not so much with Denny Nagel. He's leading the league in fly ball outs.
There's the throwdown now by Eusebio. And Ryan Klesko will step in and lead off here in the bottom of the second. Klesko 244 for the season, 18 homers, 66 RBIs. He's gone 2 for 6 in this series.
Very late on that fastball. Was upstairs and got in on him some.
He is 6 for 25 lifetime, a 240 average against Kyle with 1 homer. And that's out of play. The count 0-2 on Klesko.
Don't you think it'll be interesting when the Braves do get to Boston tomorrow night, Pete, to find out if maybe Klesko and Fred perhaps think about that green monster in left field a little more?
It's going to be interesting to see all the hitters' reactions to that place.
Fred, of course, has played there while with Toronto.
And you can see it. I know most of the guys, of course, all the guys have seen it on TV. But there is no comparison until you walk in that place and see it in person. Strike 3 to Klesko. Second strikeout for Kyle. 1 gone. It looks like it's right on top of you, that left field wall at Fenway Park.
There's that big hook, too. Strikeout number 2. And a beauty.
One away. That'll bring up Javi Lopez, 289 for the year with 20 homers. His 20th homer won the first game of the series. He's driven in 55. He's only 2 for 19 in his career against Kyle. He takes inside, ball 1. Line towards second. Nice stop on the short hop by Biggio. And Lopez is out number 2.
Something else too, Pete, places like Fenway Park with all the new stadiums being built, there's not many places left where a ball player can go in and think to himself, this is where Ted Williams played, right here. This is where Carl Yastrzemski stood. There are so many great things and historical things about Fenway Park and Tiger Stadium and Wrigley Field. That's something players look forward to.
Tom Glavine looking forward to it. He's from the Boston area, from Billerica, but he's never played a game at any level at Fenway Park. He did say in an interview I saw last night that he had played some hockey matches at the old Boston Garden when he was in high school, but never got a chance to play at Fenway Park. That'll change Sunday night. Blauser, short hop to Bogar. Nice play by Tim Bogar on the first. And it's a 1-2-3 inning for Darryl Kyle. He's played 2, no score from Atlanta.
Take a look at the Rogaine leaderboard. Tonight's topic, National League ERA leaders in the month of August. And again, Pedro Martinez at the top of the list, as he has been all year long. But Denny Nagel, 4th in the league in the month of August with a 1.47 ERA.
And his first pitch on the way to Darryl Kyle to start the third is a strike. Kyle just 118 for the year. He does have 6 RBIs. Nothing in 2. Craig Biggio will follow, and then James Mouton. Strike 3 call. Nagel went right after him, records his second strikeout. 1 gone in the third. Now the leadoff man, Craig Biggio, will step in.
He just wanted to show Kyle his curveball. He just wanted him to know that, yeah, I got one of those big yellow hammers too, buddy. Tomahawk Amber Ale. Did you see the sign for that out there in the chop house? I think that's doing a brisk business
out there at the micro brewery. Craig Biggio, a strikeout victim in the first inning. Outside corner 0-1. Biggio's uniform always looks as if he's played about 15 innings.
Well, lately
the game just started. Look at him already.
he may be the pine tar king of the league. You know what? Look at his bat. He's got tape and some fresh tape on the handle, but it's dripping out there around the brand.
Right off the handle, shallow left center field. Blauser, nice play as he backpedals for the catch. 2 men gone, and the batter will be James Mouton.
That would be one you'd like to look at the baseball just to see if there was a little pine tar on it from where he hit it, because he did get jammed.
Well, there might be, and Denny Nagel's certainly not going to mind.
No, he's not going to say anything to anybody.
James Mouton fly to center, his first time up. Breaking ball low and inside. 1 ball, no strikes. The count on the Astros center fielder Jeff Bagwell on deck. John Smoltz against Aaron Seeley tomorrow night from Fenway. And Kevin Millwood's going to be called back up. In fact, he's already here. He will pitch on Saturday, and they'll have to make a roster move before Saturday's game to make room for Millwood. He goes against Tim Wakefield. Tom Glavine on Sunday, probably against Steve Avery, although right now the Red Sox are saying they're undecided about the Sunday night game. Here's the 2-1 pitch now to Mouton. Hit foul out of play, right side, 2-2.
We talked at the beginning of this series, Pete, about how important it was to keep Biggio off base and pitch carefully to the killer bees, which at that time the first through third hitters were Biggio, Bell, and Bagwell. Well, to back that up,
that'll be out of play again. Still 2-2.
the Astros have scored 12 runs in this series, both of them extra inning affairs, and Biggio and Bagwell have accounted for 8 of those 12 runs.
And we talked about all the men left on base by the Astros. Most of that's been from the 4 spot on down, so that's why Larry Dierker shuffled up that batting order tonight a little bit. Two men out, a 2-2 count on Mouton. The 2-2 on the way, just off the inside corner, full count.
Players are creatures of habit, Pete, as you know, and sometimes if you're just thrown into the starting lineup at the last second, it might take you an at bat or two to kind of get your mind right. I'm wondering that about Mouton, who was added so late to their starting lineup.
Just off the corner, ball 4.
And I'm talking about pregame preparation, going through normal batting practice where you get maybe you get a few extra swings if you're in the starting lineup because your time is short on the road, how much time you're allotted to take batting practice.
Second walk issued by Nagel. Here's Jeff Bagwell. Bagwell grounded out to third his first time up. 3 out of 11 now in this series.
Bagwell told me something interesting about this down spell he's been in terms of average since the All-Star break, that has lowered his average down into the mid 280s. And I asked him what he does to try to get out of it. He said, you know, when I'm going good, it's my feet. I can walk into the batter's box and not even have to look down. I know right where I am. He said, but if I've got to check and see if my feet are straight or lined up right, he said, I know I'm in trouble.
1 ball, 1 strike, and he has to look a long ways to check out both feet.
Takes him a while to go from one to the other, doesn't it?
He is spread out about as far as you can be in that batter's box. One of those things, if you're a little leaguer looking in, don't try this at home.
Not unless your dad's a chiropractor.
It amazes me how many different styles of hitting are successful styles of hitting.
There he is looking.
1 ball, 1 strike.
That is an odd one.
In the dirt, gets away from Lopez, gets away from him again. He might have had a play down at second base on Mouton, and he picked it cleanly the first time.
It's a wild pitch on Denny Nagel. Javi did a quick shift but couldn't corral it. It skipped off his shin guard and then didn't stay in his glove.
Runner at second now. The count 2-1 on Bagwell.
Third wild pitch of the year on Denny. The thing that's odd about his stance, Pete, is how much power he generates from it. No stride at all.
2-2 the count.
I asked him tonight something about my son Gabe today. He said, you know, Dad, if I'm Jeff Bagwell and I get walked 3 times a night, I'd get a little frustrated. And I asked Bagwell about that, and he said, well, did you see me against Glavine Friday night? He walked me twice, and he said the third time up, I was up there hacking at anything and struck out on 3 pitches. So there you go.
He has walked 108 times this year, 25 intentional walks. Another ground ball left side, diving stop, Chipper Jones. He can't get the throw over to first, so he checks that runner at third, and that'll go as an infield hit for Bagwell.
This ball had some tremendous top spin. When it hit the dirt, it picked up some speed, and Chipper had to dive just to glove it. Blauser was going to have to do the same thing. And Chipper couldn't come up with it cleanly out of his glove, and that's why it resulted in an infield hit.
Well, now here's that spot for Derek Bell. 2 men out, runners first and third. He grounded out to third his first time up, but this is the spot that Larry Dierker and Tom McCraw, the hitting coach for the Astros, would like to see Derek get a little more productive. And he was hitting in this spot earlier this year and wasn't productive at all. When they moved him up to the number 2 spot, the bat warmed up. Now they'd like to see that bat stay hot down here in the order. On the count. One of the things they did, even when Bell was hitting second, if he made an out and got back to the dugout, or hit a home run and got back to the dugout, after Bagwell hit, he would sit next to Tom McCraw, and McCraw would talk about what Bell should be looking for hitting behind Bagwell. It's going to be a little different from hitting ahead of him. You're going to see more fastballs hitting ahead of him with Biggio on base most of the time. Trying to get him to think along with the pitcher a little more. First and third, 2 outs. There's a good pitch. Fastball outside corner, 0-2.
Something else with that, Pete. When you're batting cleanup, this ball club outside of Bagwell has virtually no power. They have some guys who can hit it out, yes, but none to speak of after Bagwell. So Bell felt a little pressure to kind of pick up for Bagwell when they pitched around him and pressed a little too much. When he goes to the 2 hole in the order, that changes. All the pressure's off. He can just relax and hit line drives again. And that's all they want him to do in this spot.
The 0-2. A little bit up above the belt. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Let's take another look. Breaking ball. Looked pretty good.
2 men out, first and third. No score here in the top of the third. And the 1-2 on the way outside, 2-2. Bell, very, very tough to pitch to because he'll look bad sometimes on a pitch right down the middle of the plate. Then he'll take a pitch about 1.5 feet outside,
right,
check his swing and knock it into right center field.
Can't really pitch him in any pattern. And Denny trying to be careful because of that, even though he's ahead in the count, knowing that runs are going to come at a premium tonight. And he wants to get out of this inning.
Here comes the 2-2 pitch. In the air, shallow right field, coming hard. Michael Tucker, he's there for out number 3. 2 more runners left on by the Astros. They've stranded 4 in the game. They have stranded 32 in the series. Still no score.
Game winner in the bottom of the 10th inning for the Cubbies to win that ball game. Montreal has scored 5 in the first. David Segui a home run in St. Louis. In the American League, Toronto in 11 innings a winner. Kansas City over Baltimore 5-1. That's a final. In some interleague play, San Diego beat Anaheim 9-2 at Jack Murphy Stadium. Later tonight, Seattle at Colorado, Texas, San Francisco, Oakland at Los Angeles.
Tony Graffinino will lead off. As we go to the bottom of the 3rd, no score. Graffinino 244, 5 homers, 14 RBIs, a couple of home runs in this series. Takes a strike. Facing Kyle for the first time.
Tony's having a little housework to do around the batter's box.
There's the 0-1. Good curveball. 0-2.
The Braves batter's box area is always real firm. Has a lot of clay in it. You rarely see any loose dirt. So I'm wondering why it has gotten so loose the last couple of games. Maybe because they've played about 100 innings the last 2 days.
Line to right, but right at Bell. 1 down.
Number 15, Denny Nagel.
Here's Denny Nagel hitting 155 with 6 RBIs. 1 away. No score. Bottom of the 3rd. Did you have a long game last night, Joe?
I mean the one that ended today with the rain delay in the 11th inning. You asked me if I'm a little short today, Pete. Is that what you're asking me?
No, just wondered how long that game went.
Lay off.
0-2 the count. Been a tough week. First Oklahoma, then extra inning games 2 nights in a row. Man, 0-2 the count on Nagel.
I got to hear it from the portly guy and now the professor.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Yeah, I got to tell you about a survey. You fans can go out and do this too if you've got the internet. That the Sporting News is conducting right now. You can vote on this. Toward 3rd, another short hop. Nice play, Gutierrez. We've seen 1 from Biggio, 1 from Bogar, and now 1 from Gutierrez. 2 men gone. You know, these internet sites, Joe, they have these polls that they conduct among baseball fans, and the Sporting News has one going on right now. You fans can vote on it if you get on the internet. Get on the Sporting News site. And it's Mark McGwire is going to play his first game at Coors Field September 4th. How long will his first home run go? 400 and something feet? 500 and something feet? Or you can also vote for 600 and something, 700 and something, or 800 and something. I don't know if the air is quite that thin out there. Lofton walked in the first inning. Inside corner, 0-1.
Well, I'll tell you what I would do if I were in the vicinity. I would pay to go watch him take batting practice at Coors Field.
Well, that's going to be something. 0-1 on Lofton. 0-2 on Lofton.
That 460-foot marker at the base of the scoreboard in center field here at Turner Field.
Now the 0-2 on the way. Lofton lines it to right center field. That's going to drop in. Base hit. Hit number 2 off Kyle. And Lofton aboard with 2 men out here in the 3rd.
That was almost a uh-oh, I'm in trouble type swing on a breaking ball. He had committed, and it was almost like the ball found his bat. Down and in, and a very short, easy swing that he kind of fought off down and in.
That'll bring out Michael Tucker, flying to center his first time. Lofton at first, 2 outs. Lofton was caught stealing in the first inning.
Quite a difference there.
Now to play 0-1. And the guy who's had you can't really call it control problems. because he's only walked 2, but his ball strike ratio pretty even, is not the one you would expect it to be in this matchup. Darryl Kyle, normally a guy that throws a lot of pitches.
Right.
Nagel's thrown a lot of pitches tonight through 3 innings. Nothing in 2. If Tucker kept that one fair, he would have had himself a base hit. Though third baseman Ricky Gutierrez is playing very deep third.
Yeah, and when you catch a third baseman back like that, you don't have to be quite so fine. You don't have to put it right on the third base line. The element of surprise will help you if you just keep it fair.
Here's the 0-2 in the air to center. Mouton back a couple of steps. And that'll do it for Atlanta in the third. Well, we've played 3 and we're getting just what we thought we'd get. No score. For you in the bottom half of the inning. No runs, 2 hits for the Astros. No runs, 2 hits for the Braves. Luis Gonzalez leads off the 4th, and here's Joe.
Thanks, Pete. Gonzalez drew a walk his first time up. He'll be followed by Ricky Gutierrez and then Tony Eusebio. Some hard-working guys right there enjoying the ball game. A strike to Gonzalez to start the inning. Nagel retired the side in order in the first inning, but struggled in the second and third. 1-1. Like Derek Bell, Gonzalez out of Tampa. And played collegiately at University of South Alabama. Waited on the breaking ball, but wound up jamming himself a little bit. It's 1-2. They shade him a little toward left again. And Nagel tries to keep him honest. The ball got away from him. 2-2.
For you purists out there on our Aflac trivia question, in 1963 it was the Colt 45, not the Astros.
2-2 pitch up and in again. They've still got one of those old uniforms hanging in one of the dining rooms right there by the press box in Houston. That was a good-looking uniform.
Yeah, they were.
Payoff pitch in the air and out of play.
That should save us about 15 letters clearing that up.
Right.
Our fans are very sharp. They catch all those things.
Again out of play. I always like the ones that go, Joe, incidentally, consequently, by the way, remember last Wednesday when you were talking about, most of the time I can't even remember an hour ago. Payoff pitch again, low, and Gonzalez draws his second walk of the ball game. And the third walk issued by Denny tonight.
Yeah, Denny's control not quite as sharp tonight as it normally is. He's walked 1 in each of the last 3 innings. A lot of pitches, as we showed you a while ago. See how the Astros play it here now with Gutierrez.
And already the most walks in a start for Denny since July 1st against the Yankees. Well, we've already talked about Larry Dierker being unconventional, and he knows 1 run right now would be pretty big for Darryl Kyle. But Gutierrez is swinging. He fouls one off.
He doesn't have a sacrifice bunt all year.
Come to think of it, Gutierrez was up in a sacrifice bunt situation in extra innings 2 nights ago and was hacking away. 0-1 the count. Yeah, it does have a long look at Mike Cubbage coaching at third.
He had 4 sacrifice bunts a year ago.
Steps out, takes another look at Cubbage. 1 year ago, his last bunt. Mike Cubbage, the old Virginia Cavalier. Mike's got his eyeglass holder on tonight in case he's got a pinch run. One and one the count. And Cheo Cruz, the first base coach, Jose Cruz Sr., he's ready tonight. He's got his sweatbands on and his easy form walkers. Boy, makes him about 6'5" in those, I think. In the hole, base hit. Gonzalez rounds second, but Klesko will hold in there, and runners at first and second. And a good start to the Astros half of the 4th inning.
And we were 1 runner off last inning, Joe. The Astros have stranded 33 men so far in this 3-game series, and 2 more base runners out there now. They left 15 men on base first game of the series, 14 men on base last night. They've already stranded 4 tonight.
Tony Eusebio has been to the plate 142 times this year. He has not put down a sacrifice bunt.
He's also 7 for 11 now lifetime against Nagel.
Right. He almost undressed Denny with a line drive right back through the middle his last time up. He's hacking away and takes in the dirt. And Denny really fighting it control-wise tonight. They've got good speed on the bases, and the Astros have 2 on and nobody out, and they're running. Hit and run play, but he slices it foul. And Eusebio had to go up and away to even make contact on that one just to protect the runners.
This guy's always been a good hitter. You look at his minor league numbers. Excellent all the way up to the big leagues. 2 years in a row he hit over 290 for Houston.
And he's not a wild swinger. He's got 18 walks and 23 strikeouts. But he definitely likes to swing the lumber given the opportunity. 2-1.
You look at his career, the surprising thing about him, his first 2 years in the minor leagues and the rookie league level in Class A, he was a base stealer. He stole 19 bases 1 year.
No kidding.
But he hasn't stolen a base now since 1993.
Out of play, 2-2. He's still trying to go to the opposite field. He came in last night in that extra inning ball game and picked up for Brad Ausmus. Ausmus had caught all 11 innings of the first game and finally gave way after about 11 innings last night. He was worn out. The 2-2 pitch up the middle again, off of Nagel and into center field, and Gonzalez is going to score. Gutierrez is going to wind up at third. The Astros take the lead. Another base hit for Eusebio off of Nagel. It's 1-0.
14th RBI of the year, and Eusebio now 8 for 12 lifetime against Denny Nagel. This time a comebacker up the middle. Nagel stuck the glove out. It ticked the glove, but all that did was cut down any chance that Kenny Lofton might have had for a play, maybe at third. He had no chance to get Gonzalez to score.
And Tim Bogar, the batter, he lined out hard to center his first time up. They're on the corners. A walk and 2 singles, and the Astros are on the board. Bogar chases one upstairs. 0-1. Born in Indianapolis, lives now in Arlington Heights, Illinois. A lot of pitches for Denny tonight.
Yeah, and that's got to concern Bobby Cox because his bullpen has had an awful lot of activity the last 2 days.
Good point. Good change up there. 0-2. Game 1 of this series in relief of Glavine. 5 relievers were used. Last night in relief of Maddox, 6 relievers. The 0-2 pitch off the handle. Klesko makes the catch, has to jump to get it. Now cuts loose the throw, but it's off the mark, and the run scores on the sacrifice fly, and it's 2-0 Houston on Tim Bogar's 27th RBI.
This has got to make Larry Dierker happy, getting some production from the lower part of his batting order. RBIs from Eusebio and Bogart tonight, not having to rely on the killer bees at the top of the order to get some offensive production.
Eusebio still at first base. 1 out, and Darryl Kyle, the batter, struck out his first time up. He might be bunting. And is, and does, and a good one. Nagel to Graffinino, 2 down, and another runner in scoring position for Craig Biggio. Biggio tonight has struck out and popped up 0 for 2. Another very pleasant night here at the ballpark. We've had great weather on this homestand.
Biggio this year hitting .388 with runners in scoring position.
It's not bad for a leadoff guy.
74 RBIs.
Neither's that. Blauser was trying to keep Eusebio from getting a huge lead, but he's got a good one. And a strike to the Astros second baseman. 0-1. Started his major league career as a catcher. Now has won 3 Gold Gloves at second base. And not only does he have pine tar on his bat, Pete, but if you get a good look at it, a real close look, looks like there's a lot of grass mixed in there too. Boy.
Yeah, that's a bad looking bat right there.
It's like he went in the dugout and rolled it on a cat. The 1-1 pitch, low. 2-1.
That's why nobody shakes hands with him after he hits a home run.
No.
He stuck to him for 2 innings.
The bat boys get out salad tongs to carry his helmet back to the dugout. Hard hit to short, but Blauser's got it. Throws him out, and the inning is over, but the Astros take the lead. They get 2 runs on 2 hits. They strand a runner. We go to the bottom of the 4th. Houston on top, 2-0.
There were some pretty good ones in the rest of the order too. Sonny Jackson was the shortstop. Glenn Vaughn at third. The outfield was Brock Davis, Jimmy Wynn, and Aaron Pointer. The catcher was Jerry Grody, and the pitcher was Jay Dahl. The average age of that starting lineup, 19.7 years old.
No kidding.
They lost 10-3, but
I remember watching several of those guys play in Oklahoma City, which was the 45's AAA farm team, including Aaron Pointer and Brock and Sonny Jackson. Sonny Jackson later was on a PCL championship team in Oklahoma City. Now the third base coach for the Giants. Coached for years in the Braves organization. Chipper Jones will lead off the 4th. Braves trailing by 2. Grounds one hard right side, but Biggio has it out on the grass and throws him out. 1 pitch, 1 away. Chipper had a single his first time up. Fred McGriff struck out his first time up. 0 for 12 in the series. There's a big cut at a fastball. 0-1. A lot of times, Pete, we talk about how a guy has worked into 7th inning or better in 21 out of 29 starts or something like that, and you can get kind of lost in that stat. Darryl Kyle has one, though. Makes it pretty simple. 0-2. He has pitched at least 7 innings in all but 1 start this year.
That's pretty good.
Yes, it is. Oh, 2 breaking ball. Did he go? He did not, says Charlie Williams. 1-2 the count. Ryan Klesko on deck. On the ground to Bagwell. An easy play to the pitcher. 2 away. A lot of ground ball outs for Kyle tonight. 2 this inning.
Got 5 altogether.
And he is not using many pitches compared to Denny Nagel.
I've got Nagel for 85 pitches already. And Kyle has only thrown 39.
Quite a difference. He struck out Klesko with a good breaking ball his first time up. Kyle is fan 2. 1-0.
And Joe, you look at the way Kyle's pitching this year, it's hard to believe that just 2 years ago they had to send him back to the minor leagues. Remember that?
Right.
He was only 4-12 for Houston in '95, and in the middle of the year they sent him back down to Tucson, AAA ball. That was after he won 15 games in '93, then 9 in the strike year. And then in '95 he was 4-12 and back in the minor leagues. Bounced back last year, but having a potential Cy Young year this year.
Yeah, but last year he was 12-11, an ERA over 4. And the frustrating part for most of the Astros coaches was that as good as his stuff was, they just couldn't get him to corral it. He was not willing to throw it over the plate and behind in the count a lot. 2-1 pitch. High, 3-1. He's given up 14 home runs this year, and by Darryl Kyle standards, that's a low number for him.
Yeah, well, he's always given up home runs because of that breaking ball. You hang those every once in a while.
Three and 1 to Ryan. And a drive to left center. That's hit real well. Gonzalez looks up. It's gone. Ryan Klesko hits one the other way. Man, that's a thing of beauty to see from him. It's 2-1.
His first home run since July 17th.
Well, no wonder he stood at home plate and watched it for a little bit. Got a fastball out over the plate.
It's been almost 6 weeks since Ryan Klesko has been greeted that way in the Braves dugout. His 19th homer of the year. He got a pitch away. And that just should show Ryan that you don't have to try to pull everything as strong as he is.
Javi Lopez, the batter. He fouls one back. Had a good cut.
I bet you it seemed like 6 months to a guy like Ryan Klesko to go that long without one.
And Clarence Jones was trying to find a place to hide, but he couldn't. A little flare in the left center. That'll drop for a hit. Some 2-out lightning for the Braves here in the 4th inning. It's Leon Roberts in the dugout too, the roving minor league hitting instructor for the Braves. Good to see him back with the team. Jeff Blauser hit the ball sharply right at the shortstop Tim Bogar, who made a nice short hop play on him. Klesko's home run, tail of the tape on it, 401 feet to the opposite field. Good curveball. I want to take another look at Ryan's swing and see if we can tell about how he stayed on top of this ball a little bit, Pete. Much more level swing than what we've been seeing.
Didn't have that uppercut swing that has plagued him of late.
That'll get him going. The 1-1 pitch to Blauser. Another curveball on the ground to Gutierrez. Goes to second for the out, and the inning is over. But the Braves are on the board, and they cut into the lead. The home run by Klesko sends us to the fifth. It's 2-1 Astros. Denny has thrown a lot of pitches, as we've talked about. That's number 86. Is that right, Pete?
That's what I've got for. A lot of first pitch strikes, but it's after he gets that strike one that he's been having a little trouble get the strike two.
Mouton hitting .224. Oh, and 2. Hey, congratulations to the Greenville Braves and their organization. They set their all-time attendance record last night and have one regular season home game left. 247,812, and broke the record set in '92 when guys like Klesko and Lopez.
I think that was their 100-win season.
Yes, it was. Chipper Jones, Melvin Nieves were all on that team. Klesko has an easy play, 1 out.
And we'll see the manager of that team tomorrow night up at Fenway Park. Grady Little is now a member of Jimmy Williams' coaching staff. Yeah, a lot of reunions tomorrow.
Yeah, there will. It'll be great. Jeff Bagwell 1 for 2, had an infield hit his last time up. Grounded to third in the first inning. 4 for 12 in the series with a homer. And a big swing, but it only went about 20 feet.
Ernie Johnson will be accompanying us on the trip up to Boston. He is one of the few who served in all 3 organizations for the Braves in Boston, Milwaukee, and Atlanta. Eddie Matthews played for all 3, but not many, and Ernie's going to go on up to be honored.
They'll have the red carpet out for Big Ern. 1-1 to Bagwell. Isn't there a Boston Braves
Historical Society?
Yeah, okay.
And they've got a big function on Saturday night.
The 1-1 pitch to Bagwell. Called strike on the outside corner. Well, they'll have Ernie wrapped up for that. They'll have him cornered and have a
they've got all
big Fez hat on him and everything.
They're going to have quite a few of the former Boston Braves, I guess, back in town for the weekend. I know Johnny Sain's going to throw out the first ball, I think, tomorrow night. Warren Spahn unable to attend.
Wait a minute.
Because of surgery.
Johnny Sain's going to be there. Do you think Leo will be able to contain himself?
Leo's mentor. That's, as I say, a lot of great reunions in store this weekend.
Out of play. Still 2-2 to Bagwell. I mean, Leo may.
Alvin Dark
like
is going to be
kid
on hand.
Really?
Alvin Dark, who played shortstop for the 1948 championship Braves. Going to be a lot of former Braves from Boston Braves times.
Great night to look forward to.
Back in town.
2-2 pitch. Missed inside. Full count now.
They also have one that's going to be one of those old-time uniform weekends. I think 2 of the 3 games the Braves and the Red Sox will be wearing old-time unis.
Payoff pitch. Got him with a breaking ball. Bagwell gave up on it too soon, and a good pitch by Denny Nagel. 3-2. His 3rd strikeout of the night.
Bagwell looked like he was looking for something outside. Look how he jumped on top of the plate, and instead he got a breaking ball in the inner half of the plate.
Good pitch and a good call. Derek Bell 0 for 2. He has hit in 9 straight. And a broken bat grounder to second, and an easy inning for Denny Nagel. He needed that. The Astros go 3 up and 3 down. We go to the bottom half of the 5th inning. Skip Carey and Don Sutton headed this way. It's 2-1 Houston.
About 30,000-35,000 enjoying a pitcher's duel. Bottom of the 5th inning, 2-1. 2-1 ball game in a pitcher's duel. I guess shouldn't be any surprise when you got two guys looking for their 18th win.
And I'm not sure that either one of them is as sharp as they normally are. They're pitching okay, but not lights out like they sometimes do.
You've been impressed with some of the lesser names that have gone head-to-head in this series.
Boy, last night that Chris Holt was really tough. He really pitched a heck of a ball game.
Bottom of the 5th inning, 2-1 Astros. Skip.
And Tony Graffinino leads it off. He flied to right his first time. 2-4-0 for the Astros and 1-4-0 for the Braves. Routine grounder to short. Bogart. Bullseye, 1 out. 1 pitch, 1 out in the 5th. And Denny Nagel will be the batter. Are you old enough, Don, to remember when you could go to call the airport or call an airline and actually a human being answered the phone and talk to you?
Oh yeah, I'm old enough, and it was a 4-engine prop.
Seems like it, man. Nagel grounded to third his first time. Chopper right back to the pitcher. 2 pitches, 2 out.
See, I'm old enough to remember Southern Airways and Ozark and Mohawk and Piedmont.
Yeah.
Jet America.
Maybe they're all busy loading those cheeseburgers onto our charter. 2 out, and Kenny Lofton is the batter.
Lofton's doing what a good leadoff hitter will do. Taking a little extra time. It's been a minimum number of pitches for Kyle right now, so he wants to give his pitcher a chance to settle in, take a load off his feet, and rest a few minutes before he goes out. And just about the time Nagel hits the chair, you'll see Lofton stand in.
Kenny has extended his hitting streak to 6 games, and he takes a strike, and it's 0-1. Just like you said. Boy, are you smart.
I guess I've watched a few of these. Should have learned something.
0-2. 2 out, nobody aboard here in the 5th. The Cubs did us a favor and beat Florida today 4-3. Right back where it came from. You can't have an easier inning than that. 1-2-3. Nothing doing. He did it on 5 pitches, no hits, and no runs, and no errors, and nobody left. And 5 innings have gone by, and the Astros lead 2-1.
Look at our Budweiser game summary. There it is. Nagel with 96 pitches thrown. Kyle has allowed 4 hits himself. Klesko a solo homer. The catcher Tony Eusebio a perfect 2 for 2. And the Astros having trouble pushing runs across. Join the Braves. The Braves have been a team struggling to do that too. As we move to the 6th inning, it's 2-1, and that's your Budweiser game summary.
Beautifully done, Don, and Luis Gonzalez leads it off. I understand Joe Simpson asked what it would be like if I came down from the booth to manage a team.
No, he didn't.
My team would get a lot of doubles, I guarantee you that. Be a very relaxed group. 1 ball, no strikes.
They'd really crush those old potatoes, huh?
We'd certainly try. A chicken in every pot. The 2-0 pitch.
I think that slogan is for the wrong political arena.
Oh, it is? Oh.
Yeah, this is a different political arena.
The 2-1 pitch. Fly ball into left. That'd be easy. One out. Well, if my first game as manager, if I walked out with my lineup card and Bob Davidson was one of the umpires,
You'd be gone.
No, I'd punch his lights out and get it over with, be suspended, and come back up here and worry about the lawsuit. One out.
I would guess you would probably have a lot of pregame meetings, wouldn't you?
No. You assume that people know what to do. Let them go do it. There's a lesson in that. High fly ball, pretty well hit left center field. Lofton on the run. He's there. 2 out. Tony Eusebio is the batter.
Would you hire Boom Boom Jeffrey on as one of your coaches?
No, you'd be my pitching coach. Joe would be my bench coach. The wind, the pitch. Let me think. We'd allow no TV cameras in the dugouts.
And you'd have to take a cut and pay. With that one.
Diamond would be our bat boy. I'd have Henry Matthews coaching first. The pitch. Outside. Hal Kicklighter third. Foul back and out of play. There's Hal. Look at him run through those signs. Unfortunately, that's sort of the way Hal runs that camera. That's why it bounces all over the place. Just kidding, Hal. You do a great job. The 2-2 pitch. Foul back again. It's still 2-2. Still don't have a bullpen coach.
Well, I'm trying to help you out with that one. I've been thinking about that one.
Killer. Would have Killer as a bullpen coach. He'd be our morale coach. And Michelle Zarzaka would be our team shrink. The 2-2 pitch. Popped up right side. On comes Tucker. He's got it. And a very easy inning for Denny Nagel, who may be sharpening up. 3 routine pop flies getting through the 6th. We go to the bottom half. 2-1 Houston.
NFL coverage on Saturday at 8 o'clock. Vince Cellini hosts the Pro Football Tonight NFL preview. And Sunday, it's the Washington Redskins at the Carolina Panthers. Sunday's coverage begins with Pro Football Tonight at 7 o'clock, followed by the game itself at 8 o'clock with Vern Lundquist, Pat Hayden, and Mark May. A 3-man booth going at it, calling all the action. That's the NFL. That's on TNT. First weekend is here. Football season is upon us.
So Parcells and Ditka coach those 2 teams? I didn't think
No. They're on the Saturday night show, to remind you. Okay. And by the way, thank you, but I'm going to have to decline your offer to be your pitching coach.
Didn't really figure that I gave you any option.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood that.
Michael Tucker leads it off. Pete can be the pitching coach.
Okay, there you are.
No, Pete's going to be my strength and conditioning coach. The pitch. One ball, no strikes. Two 2-0 the count. You know, my pitching coach gets to go out and make all the changes. You get a lot of TV time.
Yeah, but you go down the dugout, I get more TV time up here. Think of all the extra innings I'd get.
2-1 the count. You could wear.
I had to work too hard to set that up. I'm sorry.
You're going to get to wear pitching coach cam. It's a new invention we're coming up with.
Well, now it's okay. There we go.
The 2-1 pitch. Look out. 3-1 the count. Well, all right, back to the game. That's enough of that. There's the start. Tucker draws a walk.
Only the second walk issued by Kyle. When you look at the control and the walks to this point, you'd think they had the numbers reversed. Denny Nagel, who hardly ever walks anybody, has 3, and Kyle, who had 70 walks come into this ball game, that's only his second.
edges away. He's got 10 stolen bases on the year. Outside, 1 ball, no strikes. It was interesting before the game. Craig Biggio was saying they really watered the infield down here. He thought perhaps because Lofton has not been running much, and neither has Tucker. But whatever the reason, I guess he was right, because they had to delay the game to put some sand in the batter's box. It's nothing like the old days here, though, in the old ballpark. 2-0 the count. Whenever the Cardinals would come to town with Coleman and McGee and Pendleton and all those guys, Ozzie Smith, all those guys that could run like the wind, I was seriously afraid that Gerald Perry was going to drown playing first base.
See alligators out there.
He was up to his ankles.
They used to do that at Candlestick Park too for a lot of the ball clubs that would come in there with speedy players.
2 balls, no strikes. Tucker edges away. 3-0. Kyle's all over the place all of a sudden. This is very much unlike him.
Yeah, normally he's a guy that looks at the scoreboard, recognizes what the lead is. See, he's a guy pitching like now, like it's a tie ball game, and almost like he's afraid that he'll give up a 2-run home run. Pitching to prevent runs rather than pitching to get outs.
The 3-0 pitch. Taking all the way at the knees, 3-1. Fred McGriff on deck.
Puts him in some nice company, and I have a feeling consecutive, you might tally up a few of them before he's through if he can stay healthy.
3 balls, 1 strike. Tucker edges away. Not running. High pop into center field. James Mouton is there calling for it, and there's the first out. Here's Fred. He's 0 for his last 13, 15 for his last 102. So he is due.
And what teams are doing too, Skip, it's really nothing very fancy, just hard stuff away to get strikes. If they throw him a breaking ball, it's either a changeup down and away or they just showcase it to him. He's really not getting any pitches low, middle, in to hit at all.
And when he does, he's so surprised by it, he can't do anything with it.
Can't pull the trigger.
The stretch. The pitch. Curve strike right in there. Looks like he may have moved up on the plate a little bit. See what you think on this next offer. Not right now, but when he stands in.
Well, when he stands in normally, see where that left foot is? That's usually about the area, about as far in the southeast corner as you can get. Still the left foot is there, but it looks like the right foot may be a little bit closer. He's still a long way away.
The 0-1. Up and away, a ball and a strike.
Actually, from that perspective, it was kind of hard to tell. You can look down from where we are a little bit easier, and you can see distance behind his heels to the back line. There you go. See, that he has moved up, because before that left foot was almost back in that corner. So yes, he is. He's taken a little of that outside corner away from pitchers. Should get a little bit better plate coverage.
Well, let's see what happens. A ball and a strike. Hit the ball hard, but I think it's going to be caught. Mouton is there. 2 out. Keep hitting the ball like that, he'll be all right.
Yeah, that was a nice adjustment. He didn't get a base hit out of it, but get an off-speed pitch that he was close enough and compact enough and stayed back enough that he drove it to left center field. He didn't, it wasn't a lazy fly ball. See him kind of close up and go in there. Front shoulder stayed closed, hit against it. That's a good swing at a pitcher's pitch.
Here's Ryan Klesko, who homered back in the 4th, his first since July 17th.
And boy, did he make a nice adjustment on being pitched away. A nice easy swing. Took a pitch on the outer part of the plate, drove it out there.
Ryan outside, 1 ball, no strikes. Cardinals trying to come back. They're batting in the 4th, trailing Montreal now 5-3. It was once 5-0.
What that first pitch told you is the Astros are convinced that he's not going to do that at this at bat, because they went right back outside with some off-speed pitches.
The 2 outs in the inning may have something to do with it. He hit that ball hard. Boy, that's a good play by Bogart. And he throws to first, and the inning is over. Wait a minute. Might be interference here. Yeah, Klesko is walking toward first base. The inning is not over. It's catcher's interference. He interfered with the bat. Ryan never ran. I guess that's why. No argument from Eusebio. He's got that huge swing. This happens to him a lot.
Yep, he got it good, and he's already complaining. Watch, you'll see it right there. Eusebio reached out, and Klesko way back in the batter's box, a little bit late on the swing, knew right away he had hit it. I'm not sure the home plate umpire saw it right away.
No argument from Houston. So here's a chance for Atlanta. There's a drive if it's fair. It is gone. Javi told us the other night he doesn't mind guessing on the first pitch. He guessed right again, his 21st homer, and the Braves lead 4-2. How big is that interference play now?
Javi Lopez is one of the best breaking ball hitters in the league when you just throw it for a strike. That's a spinner that Kyle said, I'm going to throw my get-over curveball. I'm going to get it knee-high. I'm going to get it right down the middle. And you're throwing right in Javi Lopez's happy zone when you throw that pitch.
And just like that, the game turns around. Check swing strike to Blauser. 0-1. 4-2 Atlanta. He guessed fastball the other night and won the game. He guessed curveball tonight and hit the daylights out of it. And you can see him growing up as a hitter, too. It is guessing, yes, as he admitted, but it's educated guessing.
But, you know, there's nothing wrong with guessing on the first pitch because you've got 2 pitches left, even if you guess wrong, to back yourself up. I think there's nothing wrong with guessing on the first 2 pitches as long as you can protect the plate and foul some pitches away. But, you know, you got a 50-50 chance of being right on the first pitch.
Kyle dropped down and crossfired Blauser. 1-2 the count. Tried it again, this time with a fastball, and it's outside, and it's 2-2. Got him with a good hook. And the inning is over, but some damage done by Atlanta. The Braves scored 3 runs on 1 hit. No errors and nobody left at the end of 6. 4-2 Atlanta. As we go to the 7th. It's low, 1 ball, no strikes. 4-2 Atlanta. Braves about hit him 5-4. Klesko a solo homer. Javi a 3-run blast. Bogar fouls it back. It's 1-1.
And almost all the time since the end of the inning, Tony Eusebio has been sitting in the dugout staring at his catcher's mitt. He just now put it down on the bench.
It happens a lot with Ryan Klesko because of that huge swing. There's a well-hit ball, but foul. 1-2 the count.
And as soon as he sat down, one of the coaches came over and asked him, and he says, yep, he hit my mitt. You could see him nodding his head, yep, up and down, and he just held the mitt out there.
The pitch is a lazy flying to left center. Who wants it? Klesko says, I'll take it, and he does. Did he drop it? He dropped the ball. The runner's running off the field. He's out of the baseline. Surely they'll call him out here. And Chipper tags it. Bogart thought the ball was an out. Klesko dropped it. He sort of hesitated a little while, and then he dropped the ball.
That's having your head somewhere other than in the ball game. Here you go. Did not have possession. You're supposed to take it. It's a rule that's not enforced all the time. So he's not watching the game. Discontented. Okay, I hit it in the air. I'm mad. Everybody's screaming at him. Now where do you go? That's got to be an error and then a weird scoring play. E7.
Kyle swings and misses 0-1.
Probably E7 and then 7-6-5. Beechwood 7.
The 0-1 to Kyle. We'll wait to get the scoring. 0-2. Don's right. It is an E7 and then a 7-6-5. Kyle departs 2 down. This game is weird. They could have called him out for running out of the baseline. He was almost at the pitcher's mound when he realized what was up.
That's why they tell you never assume anything and always keep an eye on what's going on in the ballgame.
In fairness to him, the ball did go into his glove. He sure looked like he caught it. But when he reached in to take it out, we've seen that called before, and that is the correct call. Pop foul back. If he'd have just looked at Bruce Fremming, he gave the safe sign right away, which means the ball's in play. And Bruce is hard to miss. My kind of umpire. The 0-1 pitch. Swung and missed. Made him look awful. It's 0-2. Braves head to Boston after the game, Don, and I have a little tea party planned for the flight.
I brought the hatchets and the headdresses.
The 0-2 pitch. Well hit into left field. Back goes Klesko. He's got room shy of the track. And the inning is over. Ryan held that one in his glove for a while. No hits. No runs, 1 error, nobody left. We go to the bottom half of the 7th inning. Braves lead it 4-2. Ed Simpson's nutty as a fruitcake. Tony Graffinino will lead it off. Denny Nagel was struggling a little bit early. Didn't seem to have his best stuff, but he is pitching like Denny Nagel now. And Graffinino leads off. But Denny is through for the night, I see. Keith Lockhart is coming out to hit. The bullpen has had some rough times the last couple of days, so we'll see what happens. Strike called over the outside corner. Tony is fly to right and grounded to short, and nobody's throwing in the bullpen at the moment, which is sort of unique. 0-2 the count.
For Kyle, this is a somewhat pivotal inning. If he gets through this inning, there'll be 23 straight starts of going 7 innings or more. Boy, isn't it great to have a guy like that on your staff that you can pencil in those innings, and they have been pretty darn good innings.
Outside, a ball and 2 strikes. Bobby was talking before the game about when he was the general manager and Kyle was in Double-A. I assume it was when he was general manager. How the Braves tried to get him then. Boy, there's a tough pitch. He dropped down and cross-fired Graffinino. 1 away. And here's Lockhart. So Denny is out of there. Mike Cather begins to throw. Well, we tried this last night. It didn't work out so well when we turned it over to the pen. We'll see what happens tonight. 4 strikeouts, by the way, for Darryl Kyle. Lockhart takes a strike. 0-1. He appeared as a pinch hitter last night. Reached on an error. Yeah, it was probably when Kyle was at Columbus back in '89 that Bobby tried to pry him loose. Little tap past the mound. Going to be close. Got it. Bang, bang play. Lockhart argues. Corrales argues. And here comes Bobby Cox. And Steve Ripley walks away. But he's going to have to confront the Atlanta manager. A bang, bang play. Lockhart didn't stay out there and argue. And Bobby doesn't stay long either. I think Pat Corrales may have tipped him off that the call was correct. Let's see.
It's going to be a good play by Biggio. Glove hand, throw to first. That is bang bang, and if the old adage of tie goes to the runner holds true, then that tie should go to Lockhart.
Well, it did not, and 2 are out. And Kenny Lofton, the batter, 1 for 2 with a walk. Breaking ball downstairs, 1 ball, no strikes. You're looking at a good pitcher working there. This is not his best performance of the year, but still a pretty darn good one. 1-1 the count.
But even if he goes no further, he continues to do. He will have done what the Braves and the Astros seem to do every night. It's a 2-run ball game.
Bunted down the third base line. He'll get a hit. A 2-out bunt.
Keeps the inning alive, and what a beautiful bunt. Watch how he deadens that. You got no chance if you're Gutierrez. He didn't even think about throwing over there. With a speedster, that's not a bad play because you know maybe he might steal or he might score.
If he can try to steal.
If he can try to, but what you hate to see, a big guy do that. You know, you want to see him hit a double. You'd rather with 2 outs have a guy hit a double. By the way, that's the 12th bunt single this year for Kenny Lofton.
1 more than he had before this at bat. Throw to first, runner back. Right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Runner at first, 2 down. Outside. Where are you guys going to dinner in Boston?
Lockober. L-O-C-K-E-O-B-E.
That's a good one. Legal Seafood's a good one.
Davio's.
Anthony's Pier 4.
I used to love to go to Michael's Waterfront there. What a great place. I must have been the only one that thought that. It's not there anymore.
Oh, you could always get a table.
Yeah.
That's why you liked it. 1-1 the count. Runner at first, 2 down. Michael fouls it away. Headed for the press box. Unfortunately, hits no one. Just kidding. 1-2 the count.
One of the clues that a guy like a Michael Tucker is going through some frustrating times is to watch after a swing like that, which is a good looking swing, but it's a little bit longer, and you'll see him look at the bat like, how could I not drive that pitch? And you can tell that the timing is off, and he's getting pitches almost identical to the ones that he got earlier in the year, but just can't connect on them.
Fouls another one back. That one hit a guy wire on its way back and went plummeting into the seats, but everybody's all right. Nagel went 7 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. He can only win this game or get a no decision. He cannot lose it. Need the bullpen to pick us up tonight. The 1-2. Runner going, swung and missed, and the inning is over. So Tucker's problems continue, and Kyle records his 5th strikeout. 1 hit, no runs, no errors, 1 left. 7 innings have gone by, and the Braves lead the Astros 4-2.
Now that Brad Ponce is back to join Cather.
And we'll get some new troops, I guess, over the weekend. When the September or the August 31st deadline hits us. Little looping pop fly. Graffinino's got it. 1 down. Broke his bat on that one. A good start for Mike in the 8th inning. And here's Jeff Bagwell, 1 for 3.
Skip, I know you'd like to join me in sending along get well wishes to one of my favorite people I ever played with, and one of the best loved players ever to play baseball. Boog Powell underwent some surgery.
Yeah, I saw that.
And Booger, one of the best guys, one of the strongest men I've ever known, and so we wish him a speedy recovery and hope that the surgery was as successful as he wanted it to be. So get well, Booger.
Bagwell hits it hard. What a play. Can he throw him out? Yes. Dandy play by Chipper Jones. 2 down. This one bears looking at again.
Well, you'll see the first half of a great play right there. Just getting to the ball. Now you got to come up with it and make a long and accurate throw from a guy who runs well and still gets him by more than a step. That's a great angle right there to show you how far he had to go.
Yeah, talking about Boog Powell, who of course was a big star in Baltimore and still does very well in the restaurant business there. Son Chip was in Baltimore yesterday to do an interview with Eric Davis, who just looks great and thinks he'll be ready to play in about 2 weeks.
Wonderful.
And sent along his best wishes to us. Boy, we double that to him. There's my son. Why do they make baseball announcers wear ties? They look silly. Nobody comes to the ballpark in a tie. Another meeting. Steve Lyons, he's awake. Good. I thought he had drifted off there for a moment.
This is a tense, uptight occupation.
Yes, it is. Down and in, 2 balls, 1 strike.
A lot of pressure every night.
Seriously, I can't describe the feeling when you look down the press box and see your son in, I guess, the family business. Wow. Up the middle, off the glove of Cather. 1-4-3, and the inning is over. So Mike gets him 1-2-3 in the 8th. We go to the bottom half. A little insurance couldn't hurt. 4-2 Atlanta.
Familiar faces and some old familiar faces. Georgia Tech graduate Nomar Garciaparra and some other guys Braves pitchers might not rather see. It's the Braves against the Red Sox. Tomorrow night we will have game 1 for you. Don't forget that's a 7 o'clock start. It's John Smoltz against Aaron Seeley, a couple of right-handers with identical 12-10 records.
They got another guy over there. Reggie Jefferson is in the top 5 in the league in hitting over 340.
And he is a guy that has been cast off by everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's been let go by about 4 organizations, and all he needed was somebody to give him a chance to go out there a lot.
The 1-0 pitch. He had a home run cut, but he came up empty. It's 1-1. Well, we're all happy for Jimmy Williams. He's done a great job for the Red Sox, and we look forward to seeing him tomorrow. I bet you he's looking in tonight. I wonder if Chipper hurt himself with that swing. He left the batter's box and bent over. Boy, I hope it's not one of those rib cage things.
That's usually, it's either back or rib cage when you see a guy bend over like that after a big swing.
The 1-1 inside, 2 balls and a strike.
Well, let's take a look and see if we can see anything. It's a fastball in on him. Big follow through, and he torques pretty good. So that's a swing there that could be lower back.
Just missed outside. 3-1. I think he'd be happy to take a walk here. He walks out of the box again. Mark Wohlers goes to work in the Atlanta bullpen. 3-2. So a payoff pitch is due. The Atlanta third baseman, who has sparkled a field tonight and is 1 out of 3 as a hitter. Payoff. Hit foul, pass first. Still 3-2. We don't hear the attendance announced anymore, do we? I don't know what happened. Pretty good crowd. I would say perhaps the best crowd of the series, certainly better than last night. The payoff pitch to Chipper Jones, again forthcoming. Low and inside. A good start for Atlanta in the bottom of the 8th. Darryl Kyle issues his 3rd walk of the night.
And you do the other team a real favor when you see a guy hurt himself and then you put him in a situation where he really doesn't have to take any more aggressive swings.
A couple of all-stars, Sherrill, Bagwell, and Jones.
How'd you like to own stock in that duo? Whew.
Grounded to first, foul ball. Oh, and 1 the count to Fred, who is 0 for 3, 0 for 14, 15 for his last 103. Bummer. Andrew Jones getting ready to hit next. Don has a calculator out. That's terrifying. The 0-1 pitch. Pop foul back and out of play. In that streak of 103 at bats, 146 the average for Fred McGriff. Nice job, huh?
We could have extrapolated that out a few more digits if we wanted to, though.
We could have, yeah. But Colorado leads Seattle 3-2 after 2. That's living up to advanced billing. Ground ball, that's through into right field, base hit. Chipper around second. He's on his way to third. Bell's throw, a good one. He is safe. And the Braves with a chance to get some insurance here in the 8th. That away, Fred. He pulled that ball, too, into right field.
Well, they were giving the whole right side. He reached out and rolled the wrists over. This is a good play by Bell and a good throw, but watch the slide on the back end. Chipper Jones takes to the outside, and he doesn't give Gutierrez anything to slide, anything to tag. Here's a guy who can slide on his left side and his right side. Goes to his left side. Kind of a backdoor slide. That's the only way he got in there.
Action in the bullpen for the Astros, and Larry Dierker on his way to the mound. He sashays toward the mound. Jose Lima is the right-hander in the bullpen for Houston. And we'll see what's what here. Kyle has pitched a good ball game. The interference call really hurt him.
And you look at this inning and you look at the 6th inning too, though. Leadoff walks.
Yep. You're asking for it.
Against a good ball club. You know, you can do it against a bad ball club and get away with it, but against a good ball club.
Dierker's going to stay with him. He's only thrown 98 pitches. This is where Larry differs from most managers. He'll go longer with his starting pitchers than most.
Well, he told you in spring training he was going to do that because he said, I like the idea of having a guy who's been in the heat of the battle at less than 100%. I'd rather take him over some guy who's coming in fresh.
Infield has to come in. Andrew Jones bats for the first time in the game. And has a good cut, but fouls it off 0-1.
You know what that says about Larry Dierker, too, if he's willing to do that? What he says is that I'm going to go in and I'm going to face you after the game, and I don't care if you second-guess me. Bring on the questions. That's my philosophy, and I'm going to stick with it. It's what I appreciated and what worked when I was a player.
And I'll tell you something else about him. There's probably never been a manager more suited. The stretch, the 0-1.
You know where you're going.
To handle the press, and by press we don't just mean newspaper men, people like us, radio, TV, 6 and 11 yo-yos, all of us. He's been there and he knows the tough parts of both jobs.
Right.
The 1-1 pitch. Hit up the middle. Boy, what a play to knock that ball down. The throw is to first for an out. They throw to second. McGriff gets in there. Fred must have lost that ball because he never made a move. If Kyle had realized, he could have still gone to second and gotten the double play.
Well, a lot of things can go wrong when there's a line drive up the middle. Your instinct is to break on the crack of the bat, And right here, you have to assume he's caught it. And by the time you figure out that he didn't catch it, kind of hung up in no man's land. And you're right, Kyle's first move should have been to check second there.
Yeah, you can't blame Fred on that. Because the ball was hit right back at him.
Yeah, if he takes 2 more steps and it is caught, it's a double play.
Let's see what they do with Javi Lopez. They're going to pitch to him, it would appear.
Bet they don't start him with a breaking ball for a strike.
I bet he's looking for a fastball.
He might chase one out of the strike zone, but I bet he doesn't get a breaking ball knee-high down the middle.
He's not going to get anything yet. Javi steps out of the batter's box. Whoop. Team meeting. The crowd is 37,849. And now we're back to play. Looking ahead to the 9th inning, Houston sends Gonzalez, Gutierrez, and Eusebio, at least they're the scheduled hitters, against Mark Wohlers. The stretch and the pitch. It was a curveball, but you're right, nowhere near the strike zone. 1 ball, no strikes.
Yeah, I think in a situation like this, if you're a good pitcher and you got good stuff and you don't want him to hit it to the outfield, you got a good chance of jamming a guy like Javi Lopez, and your highest percentage pitch would probably be something on the hands.
You've also got first base open, so you're not really interested in making a quality pitch in the strike zone. Nowhere near 2-0. Let's see if they go ahead and put him on.
Let's see, if you're going to make those 2 pitches right there, you might as well have just gone ahead and intentionally walked him in the first place.
And that's what they're going to do now. So it is an intentional pass. It's the first intentional 4th of the night for Kyle. And Jeff Blauser bats with the bases loaded. Blauser is 0 for 3 tonight, and he's 4 for 40, a 100 average against Darryl Kyle. He's been one of the toughest pitchers in the league for Jeff. The crowd is in a frenzy, or at least a semi-frenzy, because of the intentional pass.
I think if I were the Astros now, I'd move the infield back. Remember, Blauser's had a little problem with his foot, so he's not 100%, and I think you take your chances on turning the double play.
Now, we talk about the squeeze all the time. A lot of people don't like a bases-loaded squeeze, but that's a possibility here. Bobby Cox likes that play.
He likes the squeeze, and one of the reasons you don't like a bases-loaded squeeze is it's so easy to get a double play.
Yeah.
Pop up, and you get a double play at 3 places.
They play Blauser slightly to pull. Graffinino on deck. Ground ball. Can they get 2? Out there. The strategy works to perfection. And the inning is over. Blauser's problems against Darryl Kyle continue. And the Braves miss a chance to blow it open. 1 hit, no runs, no errors, 2 men left. We go to the 9th. Braves on top 4-2. 1-800-700-CHOP to subscribe to the official monthly magazine of the Braves.
And in 2 moves, you can tie that to Tom Cruise.
Yes, you can, as long as Kevin Bacon's in the middle of that thing. I think the man upstairs feels like maybe Villanova's running it up. They're in the 3rd quarter. Villanova leads Westchester State 64-0, and the game has been delayed by lightning. That might be a sign for Villanova to sit on the ball.
How's my luck going? I took Westchester in 63.
What a bad break. We go to the 9th. Mark Wohlers in to pitch. You know, he didn't do well last night, and I know he's glad to be right back out there.
But if you've watched Bobby Cox over the years, this is his strategy. If a guy struggles one night, he'll have him back out there the next night.
If not, you damage their psyche. 1 ball, no strikes. Further bullpen action for Atlanta. Bill Spires has grabbed a bat to move on deck and hit for Gutierrez. 2-0. Come on, Mark. 2 balls, no strikes. Javi to the mound to give him a little pep talk. Chad Fox, who did not pitch last night, is in the pen for Atlanta. and Embry throwing as well. Waller's the 13th reliever used by the Braves in this 3-game series. And Houston's not far behind. That's a strike. One difference about this game: in the last 2 contests, Houston left 15 runners aboard. 30 in the first 2 games of the series, only 5 tonight. So far, the 2-1 pitch will not be made. Gonzalez steps out. Somebody has thrown something on the field out in right field. And Andrew Jones flips it into the club level. The 2-1 pitch. Here it is. Downstairs. Any base runner, of course, and the potential tying run comes to the plate. Now, in the old days, he takes this pitch no matter.
Right. Because you're looking for a base runner. His run is not the one. It's important in that it's a stepping stone.
3-2, and that's what he did.
And if you watch him play every day, he's a throwback to the old days. He's a guy who plays hard in the outfield, plays smart at the plate.
So a payoff pitch is due from Waller. He walked it, missed up high. It looks like he's afraid to throw anything but his fastball all of a sudden. Runner at first. Here comes Spires.
I like the idea of having Jeff Blauser come in to talk to him right here. Blauser is a low-key kind of guy who knows a whole heck of a lot about what's going on, and he and Mark are very good friends. So I think that's a time when some of the best input you could get could come from somebody on the infield, maybe more than a manager, maybe more than a coach.
Spires stands in. This guy's a good hitter. 329, 2 homers, 34 RBI. He represents a tying run. Eusebio is scheduled to hit next. They still have Thomas Howard on their bench. Brad Ausmus, Russ Johnson, Tony Pena. I doubt that Carr can swing, but could be used as a pinch runner. The stretch in the pitch. There's a strike and a good start, and he threw him something off speed. That's what he had, in my opinion, and I'm no expert, goodness knows, but that's what he has to do, is throw something other than a fastball for a strike on the first pitch, because everybody sits on that fastball. 0-1 the count.
I like the idea that they're holding Gonzalez close. A lot of times we see the Braves ignore what they consider to be the unimportant run.
0-1. Swung and missed. Split finger. 0-2. He hadn't thrown him a fastball yet.
There's a good reason for that. Spires is a good fastball hitter. He's been referred to as a professional hitter by a lot of people, and there's one of the reasons right there.
The left-hand hitter out of the batter's box for a moment. And the 0-2 pitch. Here it is. A little low, a ball and 2 strikes. Colorado over Seattle 4-2, looks like, as Colorado bats in the bottom of the 4th. Bill Spires stands back in. Boy, a double play would be sweet. Spires steps back out. We only televise Friday up in Boston, only tomorrow. Be back with you on Monday when the Tigers come to call. Monday, Tuesday. And apparently we don't televise Wednesday. The 1-2 pitch. Struck him out. Again, it was not his fastball. One away. He got a tough hitter there, and here's Eusebio.
Your strategy varies from hitter to hitter, but when you have a dead fastball hitter who is a good one, and now you have confidence in that second pitch, and you get ahead with it, Stick right with it. If a guy, we've said before, if the hitter doesn't adjust, there's no reason for the pitcher to have to.
Thomas Howard moves on deck as Eusebio stands in there.
When you have an arsenal like Mark Wohlers, sometimes it's hard not to fall in love with one or the other. But you really can't become a one-pitch pitcher. It's balance. He throws 99 miles an hour, but he has the other two. And I think what he's looking for right now is a comfort level in using all of his pitches, not just one of them.
Eusebio 3 for 5 out of Wohlers in his career. Right through there. There's the fastball. When you put the I guess another way of putting it, when you put in the hitter's mind the other two pitches, that makes your fastball much better.
Gene Mauch used to say you do that to get them off the pitch you want to get them out with.
The 1-1. Line drive. Boy, he owns it. Base hit right field. The tying runs are aboard with one out. And here comes Thomas Howard.
See, you can't second guess that pitch, though, because he just made a perfect pitch with a fastball. He just made an imperfect one with it here. They want the same thing, but instead it gets the heart of the plate. If he follows up that first fastball with one in the same spot, he's not going to do that to it.
Brad Ausmus on to run, and Thomas Howard is on to pinch hit. He's 2 for 2 in pinch hitting in this series. Howard has a little bit of a leg problem. He doesn't run as well as he normally does. We always keep things interesting down to the last. Oh, don't. Let's see how interesting it gets tonight. Wohlers ready to go to work. A walk, a strikeout, a hit in the 9th. Braves up by 2. Strike on the corner. There's the start. Howard 2 out of 8 against Mark in his career. And one of those hits against Wohlers was last night in the 9th inning.
Right now, Javi Lopez and Mark Wohlers not in sync on what they want to do.
The 0-1 to the left-hand hitter. Little chopper, that'll get one, but the runners move into scoring position. Howard is retired for the second out. Runners at second and third. And Russ Johnson is on deck to hit for the pitcher. Mike Cather, by the way, won an inning. It was perfect, nothing but zeros. For Darryl Kyle, 8 innings, 7 hits, 4 runs, 3 of them earned. He walked 4. He struck out the same number, and he threw 2 home run balls.
Here's what the Braves have done leading after 8 innings. They've won 66 out of 69. But the alarming thing is those 3 losses have come in the last couple of weeks.
Crowd on their feet here. Young Russ Johnson is the batter, and the pitch swung and missed. It's 0-1. Johnson was hitting .274 down at New Orleans. Earlier this year, hit .281 when Sean Berry was hurt the first time when he played for Larry Dierker's team. He had a couple of hits here in the first night of the series. The 0-1 pitch. Here it is. Check swing, strike 2. Now he can do whatever he wants with it. Don says throw him a fastball, cap bill high.
About top of the letters, and I don't think there's a human being alive that can lay off of it after those 2 breaking balls.
Craig Biggio waits to hit next.
But you're right, there are a number of ways he can go. If you're coming breaking ball again, throw it out of the strike zone. If you're coming fastball, go upstairs with it.
The 0-2 got him, and the ball game is over. Johnson out on 3 pitches. Wohlers gets into a mess but gets out of it in good shape. 1 hit, no runs, no errors, and 2 runners left. And the Braves win the series 2 out of 3. 4-2 the final tonight.
You're looking at our AutoZone player of the game. It's Javi Lopez. He was 2 out of 3, a single, an intentional walk, but 1 swing of his bat after a catcher's interference looked like this. A first pitch curveball. There wasn't any doubt about it. It put 3 on the board, and that made all the difference for the Braves. He's our AutoZone player of the game. Braves win it 4-2. We'll come back to Turner Field to wrap it up right after this. The Astros 4-2. 4 runs, 7 hits in air with a half a dozen stranded for the Braves. 2 runs, 5 hits in air with 7 stranded for the Astros. Denny Nagle becomes the first 18-game winner in the National League, and in the process he hands Darryl Kyle his 4th loss. Mark Wohlers gets to save 2 hours and 34 minutes. A couple of home runs. All the scoring resulted from Braves home runs. By the way, Braves now 42 and 25 at home, and skip in August. The Braves starters have been spectacular. Nagle's performance tonight gives them an earned run average of 2.5 for the month.
That's pretty good. Thanks, Don. Next Braves telecast tomorrow from Fenway Park at 7 o'clock against the Red Sox. Don't forget, coming up at 10:35 here on the Superstation, we're in Joe Simpson, our entire TBS crew, Skip Carey from Turner Field. See you at Fenway tomorrow. So long, everybody.